How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Your producer had you booked like every half hour today. So is he going to have a
Exactly.
break to do, what he wants to do before we come on? So,
Yeah, we'll try and get you on a lot more. So we've been like quite busy. You're gonna be in Vegas again?
I'm going to Vegas. I got to have some time with Michael and Tracy because I never get to see you guys. So I just got to make it happen.
Yeah. And you're like us. You like have a million people that swarm you.
No, they're after Michael. I witnessed that last time. They saw me, and then you were walking toward me because we were going to talk, and then boom. So, but I can take it. It's going to be good. I've got friends bringing lots of friends. It's
good. Yeah, it keeps getting better. More and more reveals. I heard that Juan said that they're going to even go all the way back to 9/11, and they got speakers who are going to be talking about that. So that hasn't been brought up in a while. So that's good. So we're
going to have breakout sessions. We're going to have Q&As. We're going to have. I mean, it's just. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I mean, it's completely different.
Yeah, it's just great. So yeah, we love having you on because you always bring great information. I was just talking about the press. The press is they're screaming and yelling because they know their days are numbered, so they're attacking Trump the last time. At some point, I believe it's probably when he does some kind of executive orders, like there's no way we're going to have free and fair elections. Our Congress and Senate can't vote on the Save America Act, and we've been exposing the corruption and the fraud. Everyone knows it now, and so we're just going to stop. What do you think? What do you think's happening?
And that's what's going to happen. I haven't seen that election since I realized what they were doing during the primaries. They've been reminded. They've all gone from insurrection, sedition, over to treason, and there's no way out of it now. There's no way out of it. You can't put the wrong people on the ballot again. Enough people in America are aware. And they want to know what's going to happen with the media, and it's the same thing. Have you noticed a lot of faces aren't even around anymore? Nobody's really noticing exactly what's happening, but there was another big thing in the news. Did you see where the BBC was, they're in a case with, defamation case with the president for $10 billion, not 10 million, $10 billion. And so now they're trying to find an attorney down in Florida to represent the family of Trump. And I don't know if that's where the case is registered, because he's in D.C., guys, you know what I mean? So don't you have to do it where it's registered? I don't know. They're trying to subpoena his whole family.
But that's part of their desperation move. And I think ABC has they're hitting them with a lawsuit as well. I know you shared that with me. I'm going to pull that up. The BBC asked Florida court to authorize subpoenas. It's like, you're right. It's like, what? It's like, so, no, you're a foreign country. No, we're not going to do that.
And if you want to subpoena somebody from the family, then you've got to have it from the case location, and you've got to have what's going. You know what I mean? It's just this is for media. Can you believe he's suing us for $10 billion? Well, you guys did what you did, and you aren't going to get away with it. So.
Yeah, it's crazy. Just absolutely crazy. 10 billion defamation. So Melania's hit up a lot of these groups that were defaming her, and I guess she's won a few of them, and she's done a really good job of it. So maybe she can be consulted in this.
Well, they used headlines. They didn't use facts. Remember when she stood in front of the mic and people went, "Why is she making a deal about the Epstein thing and everything else?" Well, they weren't realizing they were trying to mess her name up with Epstein, just like they tried to put the president up with Epstein, and they keep doing it, and you cannot do that. If there is no factual basis of it, you are responsible for what you're saying. So, and they didn't have a factual basis. So that's what happened to me all the time in San Diego, and I had to keep fighting it. And then when God said do counterclaims, all of a sudden the judges said you had no basis, no merit. So why are you even in court? So then they all just started dismissing them. So I didn't get anything, but it ended. I mean, as soon as I started filing counterclaims, because they're lying, but if they file cases against you, it's going to cost you a mint to try and defend yourself, because they're going to keep lying. They don't stop, because they're not even swearing in for an oath anymore. It's just you realize there's consequences, because I just went through a case in July, and they said, well, you know, you've got consequences for perjury if you lie in the court. And the guy goes, yeah, and he puts his hand down. Well, what is that? It doesn't mean anything. And then he lied, and then I proved that he lied, and the court didn't do anything about it. As far as I know, he's still got away with all of his lies, but that's our courts right now. That's why, remember that accountability letter that we went through that shocked everybody? And that's the last line, and it's, we will fight is in bold until this two-tiered justice system is resolved.
Absolutely. And that new case that we have against David Morin, so that's hitting the headlines right now.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Fauci's former senior advisor, he just pled guilty. So this is part of the new Nuremberg trials that we're seeing, the beginning of it. So all these people that were corrupt in the medical stuff, because they had, in Nuremberg, they went after the doctors that were taking people and experimenting on them and so forth. So kind of the same thing. You know, they were experimenting on the American public to see, you know, how many people would die from that shot or whatever. I don't know. So here we are.
Yeah, and the grants, he knew that they were not operating based on what the grants were for. So they've got financial fraud, they've got all sorts of other stuff in addition to treason. But all of this is treason. When you are aware and you go ahead and do it anyway to the public, unbelievable what they did. And, you know, there's a whole thing out that the president supported, and there's an executive order through RFK Jr. You cannot be going on TV and advertising all of these drugs and keep pushing the drugs on the people. You've got to let it be that, you know, because it's like you call your doctor and you tell them you have these symptoms and blah, 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 blah. Yep. And there's a new one out, and I tried to get the name of it, but it had already moved on today, so I will get you the name of it. And the guy said, we're so successful, our results are real close to the placebo results. Placebo means you had no medication. It was just like a sugar pill. Am I wrong? I mean, but people don't hear it, and they go, so call your doctor and tell him your symptoms and see if he won't get this medication for you. And I'm like, it has the same results and good effects as a placebo?
As taking nothing.
Yeah, exactly. But I sent you some pictures because I've been saying this again and again, and nobody heard the commercials. But my widows are watching movies all the time. So on the movie channels, they're doing this all the time. Hallmark is famous for it, they're telling me. And so they're watching movies during the day. So they're watching movies, and they see all of these drug things. But what people don't remember is when an executive order is arranged, if RFK brings it into the president and the president signs it, no matter what the executive order is, if you don't bring it into your state and enact it in your state, you got nothing. And that's why all of these really great executive orders that we've now got going through that people are hearing about, they get excited and they're sitting on the shelf because your state has to enact them. And so I sent you some pictures. The first one is, if you think you've got COVID, get Paxlovid and do it within 5 days. And if you've been exposed to COVID, and then I sent you a picture of a doctor who's doing that one. And here's the joke. The son visited his parents the day before. So the son calls up and goes, Mom and Dad, I found out today I've got COVID. I mean, this is in 26. I mean, are we ridiculous or what? So, you've been exposed. So you need to call your doctor. So the dad has a doctor and the mom has a doctor, but the mom's doctor called back first. So I sent you a picture of the doctor pushing that medication, and then she's on the phone. So the son is on the left in the next picture, the doctor's in the middle, the mom's on the right, and they're all discussing it as though they're all on FaceTime for our sake, to say, you've got to get this within 3 days. You've been exposed to COVID. And so it's XO, I believe it's XOCOVA, I think is what the lettering is. But it's Segova, and Segova is where the first case was, they said, out in Spain. And whoever heard that the first case of COVID was out in Spain? Did you ever hear anything about that?
I
Because
didn't
we
hear
were
that.
having it in California and Washington State and Oregon back in 2019. October, November, December, people were getting sick. So, and 19 was the number because 19 is their power number. That's why the Georgia Guidestones were 19 feet tall. Everything they do is programmed out. And that 2020 was the ultimate pandemic, every 20 year, every century, and now it's 2020, and so genocide. And so there were people that understood it, who really fought it. Todd Callender's one, international attorney, did a lot of the help of stopping any of the military or pilots or doctors, because he said, if we don't save them, we could get through this, but we got no way to do anything. And so we don't, so we've got to save them. So he did a lot to do that. So, but yeah, all this stuff has been going on. It has been a lot of weeks since we were together, so I'm sorry to just shove so much at you for this interview, but there's just a lot going on. There's another executive order process that went on in the first term, and it's called school choice. Have you guys had anybody on about school choice?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw your links and so forth. Georgia, that's pretty intense.
Well, I did Georgia as an example, and here's the crazy part about Georgia, because Georgia's really been wanting it and asked me to help with it, and I said, I'm not here to help you with it. And so there's a really great couple. I met them the end of 2013 when I first got to Georgia, and we've been best friends ever since. An amazing couple, and they have a rehab for women, a rehab for men, and now they have cottages. And so they have House of Hope that's for a dozen women, and young girls, because they're giving them drugs in school, and then they stay on drugs when they get out of school, and so they never finish high school. And then the cottages, Village of Hope, are for if you're pregnant, and then the next cottage you can move into is to already have the baby in the cottage with you, and then another cottage if you want to reunite with your family there until everybody's relationship is healed. It's a powerful thing. And so they found out about this, about the school choice, and it came in here. So they contacted a consultant down in Florida. And they brought him in, and the consultant helped them do everything just like they did in Florida, because the executive order is real easy, and the money is available for families to choose homeschooling or whatever you want to do, because everybody gets the same amount of money. Now, here's the thing that they didn't find out until they got all this done, because they were pushing to get it done because it was enacted in Georgia back in 24. $225 million has been there since 24.
Wow.
So how do they calculate the number of people that want to do school choice? And now when they list the schools are all around Atlanta. And then this is the one for school choice. And then I sent another link about something called Georgia Promise Scholarship. It's a voucher. The parents are supposed to get vouchers. If you want to put your kids somewhere else, you let them know, and they give you a $6,500 voucher. It was all predetermined. And you get the $6,500 voucher, and you can homeschool them. You can do, whatever it is that you want to do. Here's what they did in Georgia. They started a financial commission. The financial commission has been sitting on $225 million since 24. you have to be in a public school this semester in 26 to get the first issuance of the $6,500 if you qualify in 27. So they've been sitting, imagine how much interest they've got on that. Imagine what they're paying themselves, because they're a group that have made themselves a financial commission over school choice. Here's some other crazy stuff.
The teachers and the labor unions and so forth as well.
Well, they've hired teachers, trained up teachers. They have the students all set to go. Then they go to submit to get $6,500 per student. They aren't going to get a dime. And on top of that, their county doesn't qualify because it's not an authorized county in Georgia. They enacted it in Georgia, and you're saying my county isn't qualified, and so my county, because I live in my county, I can't have any of the $225 million? So that's an issue. Did you know that they're requiring that both the parents have a high school diploma? What's that up to them? They're trying to give their children the best education they can. And what people don't remember is compulsory attendance at a public school was required as of 1850. The people were so mad, they started the Republican Party in 1854 and thought they were going to get away from this. And they've never been able to get away from this. It's been compulsory attendance in a public school ever since. The fight for homeschooling has been tough. And if you go to a private school, it's the same books, but you're paying a bunch of money. When I first got to Georgia, they had a little kid in pre-K. They were paying $175 a month for him and $750 for the older son who's in first grade. That's a mortgage payment. I mean, it's just, what is going on in this country? And now we're finally cleaning it up. We have school choice, so that's why I wanted to let you guys know about this. Last Thursday night, I got this urgent call. And the House of Hope is going to have to fund it themselves because they've already set up the whole program, and they're not going to get a dime from Georgia. And the other thing is, you have to be at a poverty level for them, and that's why they're calling it a promise scholarship. It's not a scholarship. The money's with Georgia, and $6,500 voucher is what the Senate passed in Georgia. So what I did within a couple of hours of that phone call, I went online and guys, look up your state, and I went on and I looked up every single link that had to do with it, and I went all the way and put it in order from 24 to 26, and now they're not even going to issue any, they haven't issued a dime, and they're not going to issue anything till next year. But people have known about school choice since 2017, 2018. I don't remember when the first executive order on this was signed, but this was in the first term. This was supposed to start happening. But the states never enacted it. So they started blaming Trump for school choice. And people kept asking me, what form do I fill out? Do you know what the website is for the form? And I said, what kind of form? You know? Because the state has to enact it. All of these executive orders and everything you're hearing, the state has to enact it. And then once they enact it, and they have the money, and they've had the money since 24, they filed as soon as he got back in the second term. And so they got their $225 million, and I don't know, how many students did you say you were going to issue it to get $225 million in your bank account? And now it's sitting with a financial commission. And you have to go back, if you're not in a public school, you have to go back to a public school this semester to qualify to apply for the scholarship to not be in a public school next semester. How does this make any sense?
Yeah. So it's saying right here that you get a voucher for $6,500. And then someone's arguing that some of these tuitions for private schools are as high as $50,000, and they're saying, most overwhelmingly they're used by wealthier Georgia metro counties and not by rural areas, likely because in many cases private schooling options are unavailable. So that's so there's not just party lines, but also class lines and all kinds. It's crazy. They're trying to they have all this money, but they're not, distributing it. They're making reasons why they're not going to distribute it too, so they can keep it, I guess.
Well, in House of Hope, they're going to have to put another, because they have already funded everything to get it all ready, and now they're going to have to fund another 20,000-30,000 just to provide it, but they've already promised it to the people, and they've already hired the teachers, and they've already got the whole program ready to go for homeschooling. And then, there's another requirement in Georgia. They said if it's a rehab, because see, so many of these kids have been on drugs since they were on Ritalin in school, have been out on the streets, and they never finished high school, and now they want to finish school, so now this is their chance to do homeschooling through this process. Do you know that they're excluding them? So they're losing all the way around. Their county isn't authorized. You can't have a rehab homeschool, and they're the ones who created these kids all being out on drugs and staying on drugs after they put them on drugs in school. I mean, it's just the whole thing. And so if you guys can help House of Hope, Village of Hope, I'll connect you with the couple that's running it and help you help subsidize because they got to go ahead and do it. They've committed to the kids. They've already built the 4 cottages. They're going to build 4 more. They bought the 30 acres. Everything's going. They've got subs that the guys that do the roofs are donating it. The guys that are doing the sheetrocking are donating it. The general contractor is donating who he is. All they're doing is paying the subs for like plumbing, electrical, stuff like that. And so they're building these cottages. 4 are done, 4 are in process. And so they're going to have to take the money from that in order to pay for this. You know what I mean? Because they're not going to get a dime this year, and they're probably not going to get a dime next year. But they want to make sure these kids get their high school diplomas and get the homeschooling, get the education that they need to go further in their life.
Yeah.
I think the poverty level, it said 400 times the poverty level for the income of the parents. So in order to qualify, and that's why they're calling it a stupid scholarship, and it's a Georgia promise. It's not Georgia promise of anything. I'm so grateful to be on with you because nobody's understanding how crazy this stuff is, Michael, and I know you guys, you get it, so.
Yeah, I just saw a video of this very well-educated black man that was, teaching English, and I assume that he was in the senior year, and he said he was literally crying on the camera. He said, "I've got these kids coming to me. They can't even put together 2 sentences, and they just keep getting pushed up, and they were getting ready to go out into the workforce, and they don't have any skills." He was just crying on. It's like tragic. So what a lot of these teachers are seeing, they just keep pushing people up. They're not teaching them anymore.
But they're getting money for every one of those students.
Oh yeah.
And see, I think that's why they want them back in public school this semester to even apply to get the $6,500 voucher next year. But all the restrictions on that voucher, who's going to get it? And the schools that they're listing that are authorized by them are all around Atlanta. How does this even make sense? If that's a qualification, then they're limiting who in the state can ever get it, no matter if you meet every other qualification. You'd have to ship your kids off to Atlanta to go to school this semester to qualify next semester. It so blew me away. When I heard this on the phone, this has to be impossible. The president wants to help these kids, and when you put it all together, it's not so hot. It's really not so hot.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of problems in not just political system, but the educational system. And we have problems with the Muslim community trying to take over America. So, and I won't say the Muslim community as a whole. There's leadership within. I've seen it all around the world. Their leadership, wants to control everything, and that's the people themselves are good people, just like we are, but they're controlled by very evil people. What do you think with the Muslim community? A lot of people are like really disappointed with how we've let these people come into our country that don't assimilate, don't have any intention to assimilate, want to create their own communities and push out everybody else. I've seen this all over the world, unfortunately. But what are your thoughts on the Muslim communities?
Well, there's two areas. Did you see the Chicago thing where Sean Foyt was there to do a Jesus march, and then did you guys cover that where the Muslims were doing their march and then started throwing stones, stoning that's from ancient times, trying to stone people to death. But that's what was happening. But he was saying they wanted to do a Jesus march, and the thing that was so upsetting is that he said, "So what is the Trump administration? They're doing nothing about this." Well, there's an example, and I've got this in the books. It's in like 4 and 5, and then some of it's in the new book about Michigan, because Dearborn, Detroit, as God told me years ago, that's just it was just a $16 ferry ride from Ontario, Canada. And so you would come in, I think it's Windsor area, and you would just get on this little ferry and just come to visit, and then they never leave. But here's what's gone on, and it's been going on for 93 years. You know about Dingle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dingle, the dad, was 33 to 55. Dingle, the son, because his dad died and while he was still in as a rep, and so the son took over. So then the son served from 55 to 2015 until he was 88 years old, 59 years in Congress. And now his wife, Debbie Dingle, took over when he was 88. He died at 92, and she's just turning 72 this year. They're about 30 years apart, 27, 28 years apart. And so he died in 2019, and she started serving in 2015 when he left. So for 82 years, father and son, and now 93 years, the Dingle family. And I put it in my books, every one of the districts they served in. What they did was they served in like District 12, then the next time they would serve in District 15, and then they'd serve in 16, around that whole area. And all of this happened under their mode. And to this day, Dearborn, Detroit has the highest population of Muslims here in America. And nothing is, how does that even make sense? I mean, it just doesn't even make sense, except they were letting them come in. So we have a lot to do, and they always say nice things. I mean, the president actually put out, did we ever cover that term that he put out? It's on a gold piece of paper called Takaya. Did we ever cover that?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to send it to you, because I didn't send that to you.
The hellish legacy of Representative John Dingle's family.
John Dingle to Debbie Dingle. John Sr., John Jr.,
87-year-old tenure as a family.
Mm-hmm.
And once thriving industrial city into a post-apocalyptic wasteland.
Mm-hmm.
It's been good for the Dingles, though.
Mm-hmm. Very good for them. But it had to be an agenda to have it be this pervasive, because they're running everything.
Yeah.
And have you seen, there's an HGTV program where the guys are going, they were homeless, and they were moving a shopping cart around, and they started remodeling and selling these completely devastated homes in Detroit and Dearborn. And it ended up all drug people. And they showed the horrible status of that house, and then they decided to buy it, and then they showed the redevelopment of the house and making it look good, selling them all for like 120, 30, 40,000, and getting good people in there to live in that area. But the whole community, I mean, every one of them on the street, then they go on the other side of the street, but the whole street is just a complete disaster. They've let it just all be run down. So I sent the Takai message because it's that they do deceive. That's what they do. They tell you all these wonderful things, and we would never do that. There are people within the Islamic communities that do jihad, but that's not us. We would never do that. But it's not just the Muslims that deceive. So, but this terminology is interesting on this piece of paper that the president shared, is because it's identical for the secret societies. They're going to tell you they're going to be your good friends and they're going to help you and blah, 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 blah. And that's what's going to be tough when we go through this hard time. We're going to find out people we've known 15, 20, 25 years just want us dead.
Yeah.
They don't want us to live. And we're gonna find out how evil is, and because they lie, because they want to keep you going along the road till they're done with you. And that's the same way with the Muslims, till they're done with you. And that's why I've been putting out and posting the two things about Aleph. We talked about that with the eclipses. God signed his signature on the nation with those three eclipses. They slanted the letter Aleph, in 7 years instead of 75 to 90. And Aleph means truth and life. And those are the two things they're attacking. That's the letter I just sent to the president last week, is that to make it as simple as possible. If you don't have truth in your mind, you have a reprobate mind. If you have a reprobate mind, meaning truth is not in it, which means the Father is not in you, and it's conform your heart and mind to Christ. Well, the Father and Christ are one. He said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. If you've seen the Father, you've seen me. So, because people keep questioning, I don't know why Sheila says that. Guys, it's in Scripture. You can look it up. I'm not a Bible scholar, but Father said this, just to explain this. Because here's what the problem is. If you have a reprobate mind and truth is not in it, you have no ability to discern evil. So when the president keeps saying common sense, the people don't have common sense. You can't operate your way. You're not a warrior. You're not coming through the fight. You're not, will somebody please just handle this? Will Christ just come back? I mean, all of this craziness is just like, you know what I mean? Nobody's set up to fight your battle for you. We're here to make it on earth as it is in heaven. And keep saying, like, right now, the colleges, I don't know if you guys have talked about this, the colleges are recruiting, Israeli Defense Forces are in recruiting college students. Have you guys talked about any of this? The parents are writing to me furious and said, why isn't Trump stopping this? Why is it up to Trump to stop that? You're the parents. And those are your kids. And that's what they're doing to your children. So are you going to stand up? Are you going to have other parents stand up with you? It's we the people. The Republic is a government of, by, and for we the people. And it's not been for us because it hasn't been of us or by us, and that's where we have to fill in the blanks now. So when I described that, and I put it out on X also a couple of times, because if you don't have truth in you, I keep saying you're not going to get through this. It's because you don't discern evil, and you won't know until they're at your door to kill you that that's what they want to do. And it's happened all throughout history. That's what happened in Germany. People didn't get upset when some of the people they knew at work were taken and disappeared and were sent on trains. And then they got to the point that it was their neighbors, and they didn't do anything. And then it was some of the family members, but they were still okay. And then by the time they came for them, there was nobody there to fight for them, and they never fought to stand up for anybody. And so to me, that's where we're headed, because we don't discern evil when we don't have that relationship, that tight relationship, to find out what is the truth about this matter. What is it that they're actually saying? So the deceiving, and I don't know if you can bring it up, the Muslim deception that I put in the present thing. I don't know how to do it. Am I supposed to do it? I don't know how this works. I brought it up into one of those little boxes.
Perfect.
Okay, so that wording is the same wording of the secret societies. And that's what I've been writing about to the president, is because the whole church structure has nothing to do with the Father or Christ. And Christ didn't do any of this pagan Gentile worship. That's why the pilgrims banned it for 500 years. So the same dead gods that they're worshiping in the church structure globally, the pilgrims already knew. Their children were already groomed. So that deception that went on, and Father says constantly in the scriptures, if you do it, you may not think you're being evil, but you're no good to me either. So who wants to be spit out? So if you think you're being Christian, but you're not doing anything that Christ revealed or any of the truth he revealed, it's the same thing as this, because here's the thing we didn't know. The same dead gods in the pagan Gentile worship that we're doing on the venerable day of the sun under the sun god Baal, and all those feasts and festivals, and even the marriage ceremony, it's all pagan Gentile. It's all the other kingdom. And so the same deception is happening around us in our lives that we were never supposed to participate in. And Christ didn't have anything to do with any of this, and he brought only truth to this world. And that's what they did, was kill truth, and that's what they've been doing ever since, so that there isn't truth in us. And they've lied to us about everything. So those dead gods that we're actually worshiping, and a lot of the songs relate to the same thing that you're singing inside the churches, that's why the pilgrims banned it, because that level of deception, you will not understand what evil's doing. And those same dead gods are the dead gods in the oaths of the secret societies, going all the way up to the top. And as you go higher and higher, like until you get to the 33rd in the Masonic, and the Masonic is entry level, Skull and Bones is entry level. The orders of knighthood, starting with the Wiccan order of knighthood in witchcraft, that's the basis of the knighthood orders, to be knighted, to get all the way to Knights of Pythias. And so when they take all these oaths, the top one, you have to be invited to 33rd with Masonic. And that's when you take the oath to Ahura Mazda. Why does that matter? Ahura Mazda is the dead god of the ancient religion of Iran, brought into Iran by the invaders from Egypt.
Yep.
And so you don't even know what you're saying. I think I told you guys before, in a Masonic renouncing prayer, the son and daughter were in their 60s, the dad was in his 80s. He was invited to 33rd and didn't take it, but he went through the 32 levels, and he wanted the renouncing prayer. He thought he was okay, but he was in his 80s and wanted it cleared with his adult children. So we're in the prayer, and the daughter says, Frederick of Prussia, I know that name. And he goes, well, how would you know that name? Because he was what? A world order leader. Now, how would she know that name when she was a little girl? Her neighbor girl got a Ouija board, and she thought she was moving the planchette on the Ouija board, so she wanted to get one, so her dad bought her one. They didn't think there was anything wrong with it. My cousins all had them. Our parents wouldn't let us have them, but our cousins all had them. And so then she was with it, and she had the planchette under her hand, and it spelled out Frederick of Prussia. So he's sitting at this table doing this renouncing prayer, and he said, how old were you when you did that? And so she told him. So he's figuring out the year that he took that oath. The year he took that oath is the same year that she bought the Ouija board and spelled out Frederick of Prussia. And we think there's no influence of any of these dead gods or entities or anything else. But what you're not realizing is there is power in it when they take oaths to it, and when they honor it, and when they're speaking it. And so all the dead gods, Isis is in there, Allah is in there, the whole thing of all of these oaths. And that's why in the 45 points in the new book, don't take any loyalty oaths. And that's why even the judges are circling, so help me God, in red, in capitals, putting NO and 3 exclamation points, because I have some of the FOIAs. And then across it, they're writing refuse for cause. So they don't even want truth in the courtroom. They aren't even swearing people in for truth. And so I loved it when the president put this out, but it's not just in the Islamic community. It's not just in the Muslim faith. It's not just there. It's in the pagan Gentile worship where you're being deceived and lied to. And that's why it draws into the schools. It draws into the military. You can't follow this Constitution because that Constitution has a basis of a rule of law to the Bible and the Ten Commandments. That's why the president held up the Bible and said, this is our rule of law. You've got to have order. And that's why the Pilgrims knew all of this was going to happen to us if we allowed that pagan Gentile worship to come into America. And it was banned until after the Civil War. So it was banned for the first 100 years, almost. But
the secret societies, the Masons and so forth, are going to be taken out. When we start shifting, start taking out, move the radical Muslims out, or because the secret societies, they're the ones that really have brought all this on us.
Well, and they're everywhere. That's why when people say, somebody just wrote on a response, I was just on Patriot Underground this week, and somebody wrote and said, I think Sheila's trying to tell us, and this is the first time anyone wrote this, I think Sheila's trying to tell us that there's a much larger percent of our population in America. I think it could be over 50% that are going to be at the tribunals. Wow. And because it's the media, it's and these people that have been controlling everything. And there was another thing I sent you that relates to this. Remember, I think we mentioned about Charles Joseph Bonaparte creating that election process. Did you know that relates to Korea? I sent you the connection with that. When our friend was texting me about that organization in the middle of the night, I went, well, that's this organization, the Association of the World Election Bodies. And then he came on your program and you held it up and I went, oh my God, they get it. And I didn't know why Father had me go back and add that because, my goodness, he was the Secretary of the Navy. He was the Attorney General. He set up the special agents of the Bureau of Investigation that became the FBI. And it started as a Bureau of Investigation and then became federal when Hoover took over for the next 48 years with his lifetime male partner, Clyde Tolson. None of us knew that any of this kind of stuff was going on. And so here's the humor. When Father had me put that in, he made me put in the change to Civic League, but there's really not a lot of difference between, but how many people have you been talking to that use the word municipality? Where's that even to anything? Because what people never understood is even a village has a corporation over it. So when people think we're getting rid of the 1871 corporation and that takes care of it, these guys controlled absolutely everything from the top. And when they changed it to 1986 is when he brought in the whole new process of the election process and managing it globally. But it's the same thing that was set up by Bonaparte back in the 1890s. So he sets it up. 100 years later, here comes this guy, you, and you had the chart. And that's why I wrote to you right away. I'm like, can you believe this? This Mr. Yu comes in 1986 and takes that election process that Bonaparte set up, because they have a merit-based system and they select every single candidate. We have never, ever selected a candidate. We think we are, but it's not. We have never had a proper and valid election.
Yeah.
So, and in 1986, that's when identity theft started going crazy. By 92, by 95, by 97, and I said, guys, and they said, what? I said, they're done with research and development. They said, why? And I said, do you see? It's not odd numbers. It's not, they have goals. And in research and development, they use the Social Security numbers of dead people to not be sued by the dead people because they can't sue you because they're dead. So that's why we have so many dead people voting and dead people, but they have credit. Wow. They have driver's licenses. Just it all matches And so that's why I sent that to you right away, because what is the chance that all of this was happening all at the same time and we didn't know? We were just worried about individual items, because that's what they do. Everything they do to us is layered. So that's why when people say, so how many people do you think this is involving? Because just recently, in the last, not 10 days, in the last 7, 8 days, there have been all sorts of announcements by people just sitting there reading names of people that are at Gitmo, that were actors, that were, top people. And then you've got the people are talking about the indictment. Then they're talking about the number of indictments. There was, I think I sent you a map, and it's got the different colors on it, and it's saying how many indictments, sealed indictments, are in each state. That's never been released before. Remember when we were hearing that Huber has so many sealed indictments, and then Durham has so many sealed indictments? Now it's a multicolored United States map, and they're telling you how many hundreds of thousands are in each of the states. There was something like, I don't know, 200 and something thousand in Nebraska. I'm like, how many people live in Nebraska? I had to look at it, because they were just telling me somebody wanted to get involved with America First Policy Institute from Idaho, and he said, well, there's only 1 million people here. So Sheila, we can get this all figured out, because I know who's on the Tea Party, and I know who's on the Freedom Movement, and I know who's, and we can get Idaho pretty much straightened out, because we only have 1 million citizens. But do you know what they're finding out in Idaho? They've been shipping in 30, 60,000 illegals into Idaho who are registering, and Idaho's not just 1 million people anymore. So now they got to figure out their illegalities, because they haven't been focused on it, because they think it's only 1 million people. They aren't affecting us. But they didn't see what was happening. Just like Texas, when they were building those houses for illegals, they built them in a floodplain. Nobody even knew it was there, because nobody even goes down in that part until Lieutenant Colonel Pete Chambers gets up in a helicopter and is showing you as he's flying the helicopter over the property. Everybody's like, there's houses down there? That's a floodplain. It floods all the time. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So
I did a show with Juan just recently, and he was in South Korea.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about, he was at a church, and it was a big church there, and he was talking about how I remember this going down to the president of South Korea,
Mm-hmm.
basically thrown out of office, and then they arrested him, kind of like Bolsonaro
Mm-hmm.
in Brazil, same situation, and he said that South Korea was the headquarters, I guess, for election fraud around the world. South Korea, of course, you got the China connection there, and China has been coming in, influencing South Korea. He said that up along the border, they don't even give them bullets anymore to protect themselves. And Trump just recently said, yeah, these, we every year we have these, events where we come in and do these, unit training and so forth, combined training with South Korea. He wanted to cut it completely, but it was too late, he said, so they're going to cut back on it. So it sounds like, he's starting to, crank down on this, and he's going to meet with Kim Jong-un, because
Mm-hmm.
he's saying, Kim Jong-un and I get along great.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like, maybe he's trying to get in between China and North Korea, and South Korea is already captured operation, sounds like, by China now.
Well, China is the one that trained. I was listening when you guys were talking about this on that Sunday, because that's when he was texting, which would have been Monday in South Korea.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a Sunday interview you did with him just a week ago.
Yep.
And so when all this was going on, That U was trained in China because it's China that their goal has been to take over all the nations. When I was there in 2007, I was in Shanghai in some business meetings, and then when I started hearing on what they wanted to do, they were mining all the iron ore to take ours, so they would be the only country who could do steel industry because you need the iron ore to refine to do steel industry. So they were trying to ruin our ability to do a steel industry. They were buying all of the gold and silver being mined every day.
Right.
And this was in 2007. So when I got home, I changed my email so that they couldn't contact me anymore. And but this was going on. That was 2007. Now this guy Yu, and when you held up the chart, he was trained in China. And China has been controlling 111 country elections, 111. So 71 one said we're involved in our election in America. So we have enemies domestic in America that were doing the kind of things that they were doing in these other countries. But it has always been China's goal to take over all nations. And the easiest way to do it is to take it over with elections. So when he was talking about this Yu being trained over in China and then deciding to move to America in 1986, if you go in my new book, An Eternal Plan, and you look at page 330 and 331, that's where this information matches with what Yu was doing when he came here in 86. In 86 is when they moved to a new system, but they still have they're still picking all the candidates. They're doing all of that, but Yu came into America and took it all over and did it from here. And the whole thing in South Korea and everything he was doing here was all funded by US aid. And now go backwards, that's why the president had him focus on the fraud and corruption of US aid, because US aid was already known to be paying to do all of this to destroy nations. And we were all paying for it out of US aid here in America.
Wow.
So it all relates. And I was thinking, maybe I don't need to put this in the book. You know what I mean? And God said, no, you have to put it here. And I said, well, really, it's how they took us over. So shouldn't that be in the point 43? I've got this in the FBI chapter. And he said, because of the special agents and because of how they set it up. And that's why I went into some of the figures with the identity theft, because I lived this. My corporation trial was 1992. And that's the first time they changed all my ID. And I have 25 pages of ID documents in my federal grand jury filing now that is with the IG over the Department of Justice. And nothing has happened on it because we worked on it right up to COVID, and then it just stopped. So
it was 336? What page did you say it was?
330.
330. Okay.
We can come back to that page, and I'll tell you something else about that page, because I'll tell you another guy that was all behind it. But 330.
This is 330.
The National Municipal League, National Civic League.
Yep. So you get both.
And it all happened in 1986. And this is a guy that brought this whole new election process they wanted to push us into. And when was the hanging Chad? That election was George W. So that was after Clinton came in 93.
Yep.
But doing the identity theft, they're infiltrating with their people. Do you see what I mean? And they knew how to do it with dead people's social security numbers, but they were helped from here. That's what, for them to average, and people have been saying this, the people that are using our social security numbers and they're here illegally, their average income on social security is over 80,000. There isn't anybody on social security getting 80,000 in this country. Now, how are they in social security calculating this? how is Social Security bringing up a dead person's Social Security number because they're supposed to be killed when they die? So you have to send back the last month of payment. So when you go on Social Security, it takes them a couple of months to calculate what your Social Security benefit is from all your years of working. But here's what we never understood. They didn't care. It was just another way to tax us and our employer. They didn't care what it was or what was happening. And so how were they calculating this? Because when someone dies, you don't get to keep that month. So let's say you die on the 28th of the month. Your family has to pay the money back to the funeral director because they make sure that gets taken care of for Social Security. And then that number is supposed to end and never to be used again. And you can't, if you go on to another number, you can't go back. And they were supposed to kill those numbers, but you know what I found out for me? They were notifying people and give them any Social Security number I had, 25 pages of different ID. So a different Social Security number with a different driver's license number. You see what I mean? A different mother's maiden name. Everything had to be different. Nothing could let it merge with my credit bureau report from the previous number. And the whole thing was merged the whole time. I was the one that they did this to. And so with all of this happening, how is it that when you die, that number doesn't stop forever? I mean, somebody's letting all this happen. So that's why it's just like the Somalis. They said, I don't want them just to be deported and be out of here. And they said, why? I said, I want to know every single person that helped them get all this money. They helped them get grants. It helped them set up these businesses. It helped them get business licenses on places that weren't even doing any business. For them to keep getting Medicare and Medicaid and et cetera, and there's no basis of it because they have no people that they're being, the whole thing. But they were helped by people here in America. So was it done by these infiltrators coming in that were trained? Because they're in the system, and how does Social Security calculate? And that's what Elon Musk guy found, that they gave out 4 million new numbers. And what I was trying to correct with his story is he thought those are the only people coming into America, that we had 4 million. We had almost 28 million, 27 plus million just from 98 to 2002. They were coming in that fast. It was 1 million, and then the next year it was 4.5. The next year it was 9.9. All these figures are in my Nation Restoration book. I was tracking all of this. And the FBI knew it was foreign nationals, knew they were committing the crimes, said we had to write new laws because there's no laws for illegals committing these crimes. So I'm writing the laws, and it never had a bite. They never have arrested the illegals that are able to come in and destroy us from the inside like this. So they've been helped this entire time. So it's not just the elections, it's not just, but that's why I'm so grateful we could get into this, because none of, I keep saying none of this is new. And it was all happening at the same time.
Yeah, here's a interesting. Somebody put this in the chat, and I looked it up. The hanging chad paved the way for Dominion voting machine fraud, and that's correct. They started to move to machine voting because of that, and of course, China is involved in the Dominion machines, the software, the parts, and so forth. Mm-hmm.
Well, remember when we were in Vegas, they were giving all these different names, and so now they keep changing the software names, they keep changing the machine names, because here's where we ran into a lot of trouble. God bless Mike Lindell. He really got on top of it, and he was just filing all these cases, But I kept trying to tell him, and he goes, well, let's just do a selfie. Because he jokes around, let's just do a selfie. But I was serious. I said, you can't sue a machine. The machine itself, like my computer, the metal of my computer doesn't cause any of the problems I have with this computer. It's just machine.
Right.
But it's the inner workings, it's the ghost in the machine. That's why Flynn put that on the back of his books, the ghost patch for our ghost unit in the Army. is that that's what they did in World War II. The ghost unit deceived the whole group to get everyone diverted to a different area. And so, anyway, so that there's that unit. But this guy that came in was behind all of this. That guy, you had a chart you held up for one, and it had the guy's name, YU. It had that guy on there, said he came in 1986 and set all this up. And that's when everything started changing. Everything started changing. And
Yeah.
so there wasn't any identity theft from 1933. For 50 years, there wasn't anything. And then this. And so that one guy being trained in China and coming in, but why is he over the jurisdictions of all the big communities in America and managing all of the elections? And I'm trying to find out. I can't find out. If we have a way to find out, did he become an American, or has he been here illegally the whole time?
Good point.
But people don't realize the Chinese, there's a program called EB5. And this was happening at what time? Starting in 1980s. Same as the tech guys coming in. But the Chinese had all sorts of money to come in and buy a business. And if you came to America under EB5 and you bought a business in America, you could bring all of your children 18 and under for $250,000. You could bring them with you. And that's why the hotels, especially Hilton and Marriott, they franchised all their facilities. Hilton started buying Embassy, buying Omni, they started buying Doubletree. They bought all these other hotels. Then they started building. They built True. They bought Candlewood. They bought Homewood. They bought Home to Suites, whether they were there or they built them new. But I know True is new because I couldn't get any other location, couldn't get a Hampton anywhere. And so I got a True, and it's worse than being back in your dorm room. It's completely stripped, and it costs just as much as the Hilton Garden Inn. But that's what Hilton did, and they franchised them and sold them to these Chinese. And then if you pay $500,000, you can bring your adult children and their families. And if you pay $1 million, you can bring the aunts and uncles and grandparents and everybody else. So they're bringing everybody. They're all getting green cards. And now what's happening, and I don't know, did I ever mention this to you, where they're getting a passport now with a green card? Have you heard about that?
No.
So I was on an interview with some military guys, and one of them is taking his wife, crossing every T, dotting every I. He wants her to be a full American through the process of becoming an American. So he's doing that, and a friend said, why are you paying all this money? Because you have to sponsor him, and it's expensive. And he said, why are you paying all this money? And he said, well, because you have to. And I want to do it the right way. And he said, well, at my post office, they just come in, and now you don't have to go get a post office, like a passport photo. I went to CVS, because CVS is registered with the Secretary of State. So when I go in and get my picture for my renewal of my passport, that goes up there and it gets approved. So you know you're not going to get it back, that it's not an approved photo. And so that's what I did. So now, did you know the post office appointments, they're even doing the photos right at the post office.
Yeah.
You bring in your green card, like somebody brings in their official license to prove they're American, and they make a copy of the green card just like you would a license of a legal American. Then they have them fill out the passport application. They submit it with a photo they take at the post office during the appointment, okay? And they're getting back an American passport as though we're an American citizen. And he couldn't believe it. So he went to his post office, and guess what? He found out the same thing. So then I told our friend, and he said, well, there was a time when, like, there were people, I had to do certain things that was done, but it was all done just like one person, you know. This never should have become mainstream of people with green cards getting passports. I said, it's not new.
So I just did a show with Nino and Alpha Warrior, and Alpha Warrior is saying that he says by the end of 2027, here in America, we'll be in a guerrilla warfare against Chinese. So what you're saying is, wow, sounds like could be a reality. They're bringing them in on that kind of level.
Well, I heard a story over the weekend, and I'm trying to get this checked out and vetted out. Did you know that there are corporations in America that are bringing in these 18-wheelers, and the 18-wheelers are full of young Chinese men? They open up the back, and it even happened at Budweiser. The guy who'd been with Budweiser for years and years just had to say, can't do it. Because they would open up, and it just didn't happen once or twice. And he told them, this is not right that this is happening. But Budweiser can go anywhere with their big, beautiful trucks, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know who else is doing it, and I don't know how many corporations are involved in it. But that's what I mean when you don't know, because there's no way, unless they're all organized together, that 6 corporations could own all of our food products sold in the grocery stores. So all these different brands that we think we're buying from different brands and competing brands and everything else, they're buying up the brands so that they don't have competition. So this is where we are. And thank God this guy said, no, I can't do this anymore. I've been with the company for so long, and I never thought they would do something like this, but they won't clean it up because it keeps happening. So I just
well,
can't.
They're obviously corrupt because they did that Bud Light promo. Dylan Mulvaney, that blew back in their face. You'd think they would have got smart, but I guess they moved on to something else, to satisfy their masters, and that's transporting Chinese now in their big trucks. Wow.
Well, it's the same thing of deception. And if you are at the top of the corporation and you're in the organization, because somebody that we both know was talking the other day on an interview, and he was talking about Thomas Edison and Tesla. And a lot of people don't understand the background on that. Thomas Edison was a president of the Theosophical Society. I think we've shown all those symbols during other interviews together. And it includes the 2 triangles, guys, the Star of Remphan. It includes that. And then behind it in handwriting was E and then R. And God said it's Queen Elizabeth, the original one, not Elizabeth II. And so I said, well, that's an R. That's not a Q, that's an R. And he said, look up Queen in Latin. God, it's so funny. And Queen in Latin is Regina. And so then I started laughing because by then Charles III had an R with his too. And so did Queen Elizababeth II, but that would have been Queen. And I said, so is he trans? I mean, are you trying to tell me that he's trans, that he's really a queen and pretending to be a king? And did he, because, they're talking how they flip him at childhood or right before. And so I said, God, what are we dealing with here? And he said, Sheila, look up king in Latin. And king in Latin is Rex. So that's an R. And it's inside that double triangle in the center. But now here's the funny part. Thomas Edison was one of the presidents of the Theosophical Society. And people think it wasn't that big of a deal. It was brought into America long before World War I. When the guys came home from World War I, they were all given a card for free membership and subscription to everything of Theosophical Society. They're all other kingdom. Their whole goal is to become a living God. Their whole thing is transhumanism. Their whole thing is flipping boys to girls and girls to boys. Their whole focus, they're behind Planned Parenthood. They're behind the Georgia Guidestones. And here's the kingpin of Edison and Tesla. Because they were saying all this free energy and stuff that we've got, it's going to be coming in and everything else. It's always been available, guys. It has always been available. Rockefeller didn't want to let people get everything for free. So all of these telephone poles, all of these electric lines, all of these towers, all this stuff that they put up was never supposed to be.
Wow.
So here's what they did. They set up Edison against Tesla and said Edison was the right guy and Tesla was the wrong guy.
Yep.
And ruined him. And guess who his assistant was? His assistant was George H.W. Scherf. He was never Prescott Bush Sr.
Yep.
Jr. was involved with Borman while Dad was in Germany. And when his dad came back, the boys had been to the hotel and Tesla was dead when the dad came back, and he acted totally surprised.
Yeah.
But that's what they do.
Where that little figure, Curious George, came from. That was his son, George H.W. Bush. Yep.
And Poppy
Sure.
Bush. Poppy Bush was over the poppy fields in Vietnam, the poppy fields in Afghanistan, the poppy fields in, you see what I mean? And he was the only guy, this is in the new book, in the FBI chapter, he's the only guy that was debriefed after Kennedy's assassination. Was Hoover only debriefed him on November 23 of 1963. He was over the team. And the guys that were on the team did videos. Their sons wanted them to do videos and confess before they died. So those have been out on YouTube.
So the guy that was the author of Curious George, he said he was going to reveal who Curious George was, and then he died.
Yeah. Yeah, it happens quickly, doesn't it? After they reveal these
things. Say
things.
what you're going to do, just do it.
Yeah. And you know, when you were on page 330 and you went to 336, could you go back to that page? Because if we put these two pages side by side, it's fun. And it's just it'll kind of brighten people's evening, I think. Because it's the guy who went by Prescott Bush in America. But in September of 1963, President Kennedy and A.G. Kennedy met with him. Because he was a German industrialist here, but Tesla called him an imbecile of an illegal immigrant. And so that's what Tesla thought, because they assigned George H.W. Scherf Sr., the dad of George H.W. Scherf Jr., who became President 41, who was in the German Navy before he came to America, and his parents were German. And his wife's parents were German, and the whole thing is if you go to Idaho Observer and go back to 2007 in the archives, and go back to April, you'll see a whole series of articles. There's a guy, Skorzeny, that worked for Hitler. He was his right-hand guy, and Skorzeny gave up all the pictures and everything. This investigative reporter knew the guy that wanted to marry Skorzeny's daughter, and Skorzeny had to take him aside and say, you need to know the truth before. There's no way that Scherf Sr. adopted him as Prescott Bush. These guys look almost exactly the same. I took a younger picture of Bush because that was the senator picture of his dad, because they only use the name Bush in America. Their ranch in South America, I found it in Paraguay because I found one under Bush. I couldn't find one under Scherf because they were business consultants globally and they never used the name Scherf. But all around the world, they use Scherf with one F or two Fs. But those are the two guys. And then he had to sign a document that his family members would never be in our government again, and he signed it September of 63. Kennedy, Aldous Huxley, C.S. Lewis taken out on the same day, November 22 of 63, 2 months later. And then in the book, I listed all of the government jobs that he had, that his brothers had, all the societies they're registered in, because when you die, it's all available on the memorial pages, so I was able to put all that in. And then everybody already knows.
I never even knew that, and I've seen that. You talk about C.S. Lewis in your book. But he died the next day, 22 November 20.
All three of those men were taken out on the same day. C.S. Lewis was telling believers the truth in his materials. Screwtape Letters were profound, and I haven't read all of his stuff. And then Aldous Huxley did Brave New World and told the people out in the world the truth as to what was happening. And then Kennedy got the truth from Eisenhower and said what was happening. And And where we are now, and this is amazing because even General Flynn didn't have this document and asked me to send it to him. There's a document called Military Government, and that was signed on June of 1949. And then it was at the War College registered and had comments on it on July 1 of 1949. And it's several pages, but it says right on each of the lines, because they have tried since the Civil War, they've tried 6, 7 times to do the Q movement and make this happen, and they just didn't have enough momentum. Well, look at how much trouble we're having now, and everything's been made transparent, and people are still wondering what's going on. It's like, but it's because we've been deceived and lied to about everything, and you don't have the ability to discern this depth of evil. And if you can see, bringing out 1,500 children, those 1,500 children have been taken advantage of for years.
Yep.
Yep.
So there's Huxley, November 22nd, 1963 in Los Angeles. And then let's look at JFK. JFK, same day. So we'll just put all these different folks up here so everybody can see.
And C.S. Lewis was probably in England, but
Yep, JFK.
because that's where he was from.
So Dealey Plaza, Dallas, Texas, November 22nd, 1963. And it's the same thing with C.S. Lewis. He died 22 November 1963, Oxford, England. Holy smokes. Wow.
That's a trifecta. And the satanic side, the killings, because if you look up a satanic calendar, it'll say on the third Thursday of this month, you have to kill a woman of this age, and it's like the Clue game. You kill them, and this is how you have to kill them, and then you confirm your kill, and then you get a promotion in the satanic kingdom. There's only 2 kingdoms. There's only a kingdom of truth and a kingdom of lies. There's only a kingdom of evil and a kingdom of good. I mean, there's only 2 kingdoms, and one is one side, and there's C.S. Lewis.
And you're right. I've had a gentleman on, Craig Lund, that talks about Silicon Satan. He says that's one of the things they do. And he says there's probably going to be some kind of, like this, a Trinity type of high-end figures like this are going to die. And that's going to be another major event, just like we saw with JFK. So another big false flag coming, and he predicts that's going to be a Trinity event like that. Wow, I had no idea.
It just showed kidney failure, but guys, that's how we lost Paul Obel with Truth Unveiled TV, because he was targeted. And they're targeting, it's either liver or kidney, because that's the quickest way to take you out. And then the other thing is the kill shot. The kill shot gave me double breast cancer, but I didn't end up having a stroke or a heart attack. But a lot of the guys were hit a second time, and then it did take him out. Russ Dizdar, you can see it on the video while he's on platform. You can see him take the hit, and he's still talking, but you can see his body is like, and maybe we're seeing the poisons or whatever, because you're seeing stuff happening, and he's still talking. He's still on platform, he's still talking, and people noticed it that were at that event. I think it was an event in Dallas. I think Rob Skiba was there too. They died 3 days apart. And then Russ Dizdar's wife was the one that got so sick, and then she died a few days later.
Oh,
But but most of the time, Paul Obel's wife was really, really sick, but she didn't die. So, but I couldn't even text anybody. I was still in bed during that time because that was happening August, September, October of, I didn't even drive 2 miles until toward the end of December. And then I had to get to the specialist the third week of January. And I hadn't driven anywhere, and I had to drive all the way across country to her. So, but this is what they do. But kidney failure, a lot of them kidney failure. My liver was full. They were shooting that. That's what were all of the radioactive seeds that open up and blossom into releasing a cobra venom dose. And so all I know is the doses that have gone through me, because we can find them, because they leave a trail in your system. So they let you know they were there.
Wow.
They don't just go through. So
Yeah, and it's crazy. It's sad because all the people that were exposed, that were around you, they all passed, but you were able to continue on. And we won't talk about how you overcame that, because the last time you talked about how you overcame that, they took that video down on YouTube and gave you a strike. So we're
no.
Oh yeah. So we'll just
Yeah.
say that you were able to overcome that. So that
I stayed home. I didn't go to the hospital. I stayed home.
Yeah.
But I lost more than 20 true-speaking friends between. We were the first Linwood event in July of 21, and by December I lost more than 20 true-speaking friends that I had known.
Wow. Hmm.
Couldn't even text their spouses. Couldn't do anything. I really couldn't do anything. I didn't. I lost my voice. I lost my hair. You guys would have liked it. I was quiet for a while. That's what happened. So
that's crazy. Wow. So yeah, great reveals as always. So what's next? What do you think? What do you think's going to happen next? What's the next big thing?
I think what is happening right now, because when all of that happened with Fauci,
yeah,
that's when, and now this happened with his right-hand guy.
Yeah.
Because Fauci's history was with Mengele. He was an intern, and then he was mentored by.
Really?
And all of these viruses.
Where was Mengele at that time?
Here.
Was he here in the U.S.?
Yeah.
Wow.
The picture that we've shown that has Borman sitting with Grandma Scherf, the mother of the guy that went by Prescott, she's sitting on the piano bench with Borman, and Borman and George H.W. Sr. were, and that the whole humor is George Jr. was in the Navy with Borman. They were both in their Navy uniforms in that picture.
Right. Yeah.
And then the dad, that's Prescott, and the mother were sitting just to the side. But Scorzeni revealed all of it.
What picture is?
The what?
Do you remember where that picture is in your book?
I can send it to you right now. I can make this happen.
Yeah, because a lot of these guys survived. They didn't die. Hitler survived and was down in Argentina. Then maybe even Indonesia.
Well, Indonesia is where the training happened of the gal that called herself his mother. Mm-hmm. But she was trained by the guy you see there, that smiling face. And see, you can see how much they look alike in this picture too. Now, it's not the guy in front is Gellin, but his dad is right to the side of him. See how much they look alike? Yeah. And that's why I put the other pictures in the new book. But Mother Scherf is the mother of Senior. And then Mrs. George is the mother of Junior. And then Junior and Borman were really tight, and they did a lot of things that they were asked to do. And then you see who's sitting right back in the back?
Joseph Mengele, yeah.
Yep. And then Skorzeny is the guy over on the right side. So this was, I think this picture is right around 1938.
So Otto Skorzeny was like the Special Forces top guy, and he came to America too.
He was the direct right-hand guy to Hitler.
Yeah.
And then this is the team right here.
Yeah.
And Kenny Bunt.
I think they all came to America, looks like.
They came through Kenny Buntport.
Wow.
Kenny Buntport was not a family compound. Kenny Buntport was Operation Paperclip.
No kidding.
And it's all in those articles. Have I sent you that PDF? I can't put it out on X or anything like that, but I put all those articles together in one PDF. So what I'll do is I'll send that to you. I don't know how we can set it up as something to share, but if people go to Idaho Observer and go to the archives and go to April of 2007, that's where you're going to find it. God said, we're going to Idaho Observer, and I said, do I have to go to Idaho to do it? I mean, I didn't know anything about Idaho Observer, and then he said, and when I went online, he said, go to the archives. I went to the archives, and then he said, go back to 2007, and then go to April. And so he took me right through the lineage, just like he did for how do we find the Panama Canal, because I thought for sure that President, being a real estate mogul, would help me get the real estate transaction, because if it was legally done, there would have been a real estate transaction. It's required in international matters of land of other nations that you have to do it. And I tried everything and I couldn't get any of it. And so to find out that they just said it's just going to cease to exist. So, but this is what I do in my research. And when he gives me these clues, because you cannot correct history from what we have, because they've lied about everything.
Yeah.
So that we would never know the truth. And if you don't have truth, you can't discern evil. Do you see why they did it? It's that simple.
Incredible.
So, but now I'm going to give you another little fun thing. Remember when all that luggage was on carts in front of Pelosi's office?
Yeah.
Pelosi went out and negotiated and found the right pilot who said he would fly her to Europe. And then she brought 93 or 98 of her relatives and friends and et cetera to go with them. And the humor is, and I've got to find this meme. I know it's somewhere in my stacks and stacks of saved pictures off of Twitter. He was standing by the window in the Oval Office, which would have been the Rose Garden. It wouldn't have been, and he's going, wait. And it's going down the curtains, and you're going, wait. Okay, now tell Nancy she's not going. So they sat on the tarmac until all these things happened. So, because it was a red October. Remember Brennan had that Russian missile?
Yep.
With the Russian insignia on it, so they were going to use that, and they had it all timed with the time that there was going to be a meeting in the White House where Pence and Trump were going to be in the same meeting at the same time. Now here's the funny part. Donna Brazile sent a text to Pelosi saying, welcome home, Madam President, because she knew she was already in the air and it had passed the time, as though the pilot wouldn't have told the president, as though, you know what I mean? So we had leakers. They had leakers, but thank God we had some leakers. And the thing that was really telling was when Donna Brazile sent the text and said, welcome home, Madam President. A little bit early, a little bit out of context, a little bit.
Yep.
But there was all that luggage, and because that's what they do. They go out of the country so they don't get blamed. And that's what happened with Senior. He went out of the country. His son and Borman went and visited at the hotel. And when the dad comes back to the hotel, Tesla's dead, and he's dead in the room.
Yeah, it's just like
It's all in those articles.
JFK died, the Aussies were like, talking about it before it actually happened. And same thing with 9/11. Building 7 was supposedly had fallen before it fell. That was put out by the BBC with the Tower 7 in the background. Whether so yeah, they get these. This is the way. Read this out, and this is the way things are going. So Donna Brazil, we haven't heard from her in a while.
Now, if people are going to want to take a picture of this, because the one that's in the newspaper, I'll send you the difference so you can see the difference. I'll get back to...
Well, this is a great picture right here.
It is, because all the names are on there.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna show you the one that's in the newspaper, because this is exactly how it looks out of the newspaper article.
Okay.
So I don't know who did the coloring and added the names. You see the difference in the newspaper?
Yeah.
So they colorized it so you could see exactly who the pictures were, and there you are. So this way you have everything and who's involved. But see, look at where Scrizzeni is a really young guy, You can tell in the picture.
Yep.
But all of these H1N1, HIV, Lyme, now they're just talking about the ticks in the last couple of days. You guys, I think this was all a planned thing with these ticks, because how could this many ticks have the same Lyme disease? We knew it was weaponized. Mark Taylor got hit. I know a lot of good singers that got hit. The weaponizing they did on us, and I've shared that before. I don't know if you want those again. It's a U.S. patent that they came out with on January 10 of 2017, and the patent is the cobra venom, the same stuff they put in the vaccine. So if you don't take it, then we'll get you this way, because it was planned as a genocide. 20 means recycle into death. That's why there's always been a pandemic every 20 years. And 100 years ago, it wasn't from Spain, and it wasn't a flu. It was the H1N1 virus. I went back to the CDC archives, and you know how everybody said, well, CDC says we have to do this? CDC is nothing. You could start a company and call it CDC. It's not the government, it's not an authority, it's not anything. But if you go to their archives and look back 100 years ago, and it was wear a mask or go to jail, and they didn't have these paper masks, and because it was the cloth mask that they were wearing, that they were just cutting cloth and wearing it, they were dying in the streets with bacterial pneumonia. And that's what happened to Trump's grandfather, who was walking his father that day, and when he got back to the house or apartment or wherever they were, and he just laid down to rest a minute and died. And so he didn't want people in masks, and he didn't want the kids in masks. And so that's why he had to say his military was going to disperse what was going to come out. So everything has been known and made available, and truth has been out there, but it's hard unless you heard it yourself. It's hard unless you've experienced it yourself to really get on top of it. I don't know what we can do to really have people understand the truth about all these things, because everything has been a lie. Yeah. Everything.
And I went back all the way to that pandemic, all the way back over 100 years. And they did studies on the masking, and it was known that the masks don't work. All these studies, I think it was 100 different studies, and I did a whole show on that. Of course, it was taken down, but There's no, and I still see people in masks. It's very sad, but it does not work. It does not help you at all. It's basically like you're talking about, whatever you got going on, because we normally exhale and it's not a big deal. And if you're rebreathing, that's when there's complication. That's why a lot of people died. And it's probably why a lot of people are still dying, because they're wearing those friggin' masks.
And some of them are still wearing them, and some of them are still getting the now combo vaccine of flu and COVID. And COVID is now a topic again because of what's happening. But the two things, Father is truth and life. And the life is the breath of life. And we don't realize how important that is till you don't have any breath. And that's what they did to us. And so every virus, you know, when people say, oh, I've got another virus, did you know? Because God had me look it up. And he said, look it up in Latin. I said, I don't have any way to look it up in Latin. And he goes, it's on the internet. And so I look it up. I asked for Latin definition of the word virus. And it's a venom, a poison. And all of these pandemics, going all the way back to the 1300s. I can't find anything in writing before the 1300s when they started putting things in print. So, but every single one of them is a combination of letters and numbers, and every one of them is a virus. And all these bioweapons that they're targeting against us are all viruses. Now, why is that? Because a venom strangles you. And so the one that is in what they did to us is cobra. And so the cobra venom, you don't live through the first dose. I mean, that's why they're calling me a miracle woman, is because everybody else died, because we didn't, by the 12th morning, we were finding on the 5th day this happened, on the 7th day. If we hadn't been at the same event at the same time and compared notes, we wouldn't have known that it all happened at the Linwood event. Okay, because it hadn't happened until it happened to us. And I still tease that Lynn stayed inside the house. And it was an outdoor thing with a tent. So, anyway, so I tease. So, but anyway, so the venom is what strangles you when you don't have your breath. That's taking away the breath of life from the Father, so is a mask. But here's the other thing people don't know, if you don't know about the secret societies. Did you know that if you're having a meeting, you are standing 6 feet apart in a circle, and if it's a meeting to decide to take someone out or whatever, you've got the black and the black hoods on, and those who are not allowed to speak on that night have to wear a mask. 6 feet apart and a mask.
Wow.
Okay, and so it's the same thing, but when it's the rituals for blood, and it's what's going to be happening right after you meet. You're in white with a red vestment, but then you're doing things with blood the whole time, but the people are 6 feet apart, wear the red vestment, and those who can't, because those who are going to speak against it, they have to wear a mask. So you're being enslaved, you're 6 feet apart, and how did all these corporations know to order all these things to put on all the floors and all the grocery stores, and because it takes a while to do those kind of orders and get the numbers. They had that stuff all mapped out in advance, and telling us where the 6 feet was. And in churches, the biggest fights in churches, people go and pick a seat and they sit in the seat. Well, then when the wealthier people come in and they want their regular seat, and even if a visitor is sitting in it, they're going to wait with the usher until they move that person. And people kept being moved the last 10 minutes before the service started. And people are like, I'm not giving up my seat to somebody else. Because they had to still sit 6 feet apart inside the church and get your temperature taken and be registered as you do your temperature. And here's the funny part. If it was too hot, too high, your temperature, they made you go sit outside. You couldn't stay inside the building of the church. So you go outside where it's hotter, and then you come back in and your temperature is supposed to be down. I'm not kidding. And people still fell for it and did it because Nobody understood. If you have no voice today, you have to wear a mask. Your voice is not honored here. Your thoughts, your opinions are not valued here. You have to wear a mask. And that is what it means when they gather together. And they have to stand 6 feet apart to not be in someone else's space. Because there are people that don't have to wear a mask, and they're going to be talking, and they don't want to be any closer to you than 6 feet. And so it's even marked out on the floors when they meet. And I've seen pictures of both groups, the white with the red vestment and the ones in the black robes and hoods, and then you see in that circle of people, 6 feet apart, who's wearing a mask.
Mm. So this is also in your book. This is very interesting. Hiroshima, 1945, devastated, and then Hiroshima in 2010. It's rebuilt. It's beautiful. You look at 1945 Detroit. It was magnificent, and you look at Detroit 2010. Looks like it's been hit by, like Hiroshima, a nuclear bomb. And part of what you're talking about, as far as America was set up, held responsible, used by global powers. Detroit lost manufacturing, highest Muslim population. Detroit was a childhood home of the famous Colorado football coach Bill McCartney, author of Sold Out and founder of Promise Keepers.
He was going to go back and rebuild it. And I tried talking to him about it. I said, you can't. And what we never knew, I never knew until I started studying, and nobody ever talked about Nagasaki. And Nagasaki is like Armenia, always been Christian people, always believers. And Hiroshima, the guys still have not sent me the maps, and so I couldn't put those in the book. But the guys who knew the maps, the circles for the drop of the nuclear bomb that came from our planes and our guys flying it over there, built at Oak Ridge in Tennessee, that they leveled tens of thousands of acres and built all this in. DuPont is still doing nuclear experiments there. But DuPont is a farm. Remember when our friend keeps talking about the farm? And then Grassley keeps saying it's the corn to be cut, because they're called the corn. And but the farm is DuPont in Oak Ridge. And so when we did these bombings, Hiroshima, the exact point where it was dropped was on the largest area, largest church, largest area of believers in Hiroshima. And in Nagasaki, it was the same thing. But they had been killing 10 to 20,000 a month, just like what was been happening in Iran, where the president said they're not even armed. And if you won't say you're Muslim, then you get killed. And that's supposed to be okay. And so the killing of believers has gone on the entire time. That was a civil war. Civil war was about that. But that's what they did. And look at what they did by standing together in unity, because now they've got communities that are just spectacular.
Yeah. Wow. Tying it all together. Wow, that's everything, because you released this book, it's been a while now, but it's like now we're starting to see what you were revealing all the way back then. It's starting to come to everyone's consciousness. Conscious reality is coming through for a lot of people. So, fabulous point.
When they're reading them to their parents, people who don't want to read, didn't read, and I said, just scroll through and look at the pictures. The pictures will tell you a lot of the story. Because I do put in a lot of pictures. I put in a lot of quotes on purpose so you can see what people were really thinking and saying. Because it blew me away. But the whole thing about World War II, 30 years later, I get a trip to Japan with Sony, and my dad called me up, and he was in tears. Mom told him I was going to Japan, and he should talk to me about it. He goes, oh, hon, he said, don't go. They just want to kill Americans. We proved it, da da da. He never knew. I never knew till I did the book series. Um, we were funding China and Russia against Japan, and so the people in Japan volunteered to take those flights as kamikaze pilots with explosives and a lot of fuel, because that's the only way to blow up the ships in Pearl Harbor. And so they knew they weren't going to come back. They knew that was it. And my dad told me, he did tell me how honorable the people were. They committed suicide versus ever shaming anything or doing something that wasn't right to do. So if they were sent out, because they were sent out a lot of times to flame torch fields, and Dad said the Australians were in the fields and not one of them would stand up. Because if you stand up and say where your location is, but they were flaming the fields anyway to torch the guys. And so horrific thing. And FDR being Knights of Pythias, people only know that he's 33rd degree Mason because there's a stone at the Little White House. Did I ever tell you about this, about the Little White House that's in Georgia? There's a little White House, and it's near Callaway Gardens. It's just as you come from Alabama into Georgia on Highway 20, it's right near there. You'll see where it's FDR's National Park. They have a pool where he used to exercise and everything because he was in a wheelchair. I don't remember what his illness was, but he was in a wheelchair the whole time. They never pictured him in a wheelchair, but he was. And so they had this pool, a swimming pool, and it's in the shape of a Liberty Bell. It's still taken care of and out there. Then there's the Little White House. And when the couple from Alabama wanted to take me to the Little White House, I said, I grew up on a farm. We had a Little White House. I know what a Little White House is. I didn't have any idea what they were talking about, But this was for FDR, for like when it got too cold in D.C., he could come down here because he was so unhealthy. And so then there's one whole section that has like a Dusselberg vehicle, a beautiful vehicle that was his. And so they've got that on the one side, and then you go into the rest of it, and it's got his office and everything else. It's like a small little White House down in Georgia. And then there's a brass bench where you can sit and like do a selfie as though you're sitting with FDR. And there's a big stone right in front of the house. I mean, a big, like a pear-shaped stone. And it's been chiseled beautifully, and then it's engraved, and then there's this brass plaque on it. And it honors him for being a 33rd degree Mason. And so everybody thought that's as high as he went, but he's on the memorial pages, just like Bob Jones University, that Bob Jones, not the Bob Jones Prophet, but that one. These guys are all listed on the memorial pages. The territorial governors that were governors before the states were formed, they were all Knights of Pythias, and it said where they were territorial governors. The Supreme Court justices, Knights of Pythias. It's a long list.
Wow, so much history in your mind. But you're tying it together with what's going on now. So you're seeing the corruption and the evil and so forth that's come through, and you're exposing it. So really good job. Now your website hisbest.org. Make sure you put in org. .com, I'll get you there. .org. I just put it in the chat. It's also in the description box. So I think you have another book you're working on?
I set 3 aside now. I still have the 5 that I didn't finish when I did the book series, because by the time I did the book series, I did the devotional and the trumpet call. And so I didn't get back to those 5, and then Todd Callender, right in the midst of all the COVID stuff, and I'm on all these emails with him and with Lieutenant Colonel Pete Chambers, because he and Todd were really close coming through all this, because he had the military background, and then Todd had the international background, so they had a lot of knowledge and wisdom none of us had. So we were on Zoom calls and email trails. And so when he found out when the Brunson case came forward, this is how it happened. Brunson case came forward for the Congress not signing their oaths, and had 10 days to cure and chose not to cure. So then I just made a comment during one of the Zoom calls. I just said, you know, if Congress is like that, and these judges are doing things to J6ers that they shouldn't be doing, then do you think maybe, I mean, just maybe they're not taking their oaths either? So he did a major research. Well, he's got Lisa McGee working with him. She's just powerful, just a woman of God, just amazing researcher. And she went in and did all the research, and then they gave them 10 days to cure. And did you know that the federal judges that were taking the guys from misdemeanors and enhancing them to felonies to put them in prison? Because they did them because these guys were special forces, they were Delta team, they were Rangers in the Army. These are guys that would have run the state militia teams, and our government's so scared that the militia is going to rise up. But that's what's in our Constitution. Our militia is to protect the borders, and if it's really bad, it's the several states militia, just like the Alamo. They came from Wisconsin, Tennessee, Ohio, all to come down and help at the Alamo so it could stop. And then they didn't want it to stop. And so that's why President Trump took the Monroe Doctrine and calls himself doing the Donroe Doctrine. Because you can't allow this, or you don't have a country, and that's what's happened. So.
Wow, it's amazing. Somebody else said in the chat, Michael says wow a lot. I do too. So, and you're
well,
like,
did they have any questions? Did we see any questions tonight? Because that was kind of fun. Last time we answered a bunch of questions right in the last of it, and it's just kind of fun if they have questions.
yeah, so if anybody has any questions, put them in caps, and we'll ask Sheila. Was the Brunson case ever ruled upon by the SCOTUS? Anyone?
No, the Brunson case came in, Raylan's case came in, and then Loy's case came in. And then people didn't notice, Raylan did a second case, and no one's even, every time I mention it, they go, well, what was the second case that he came in with? Guys, he named 3 more defendants. Guess who he named? Who had to recuse themselves the same day that it was filed with them? Yeah. Kenji Brown, Sotomayor, and Kagan made themselves defendants of the case because of what they've already said. See what I mean? So they've now participated in the case, and so he went and filed another case and named them, and that's in. But nothing could be done because, and that's what was really tough. There's a woman out of England, she's an American, England, and she kept saying that there was an NDA that Lloyd Brunson had signed, and he can't say anything about it, but he showed it to her so she can talk about it, and Lloyd Brunson didn't sign any NDA. That case is not over. It's still going through. This is why. Supreme Court is different, and they've lied to us about that. Supreme Court is the people's court. Supreme Court is where the amendments came from. Go back and look at 3 and 4. Amendments 3 and 4 are profound. And that was back in the Revolutionary time when you are not going to keep putting British soldiers in our homes who are killing our family members. This is not going to happen. And so they did what's called a redress of grievance. And it hasn't been used since that time. So remember when Amy Coney Barrett was being interviewed to be a Supreme Court justice, and she was naming all of our rights? The one she couldn't remember was redress of grievance, because it hasn't been done. But you and I, Michael, you and I can take a case tomorrow to the Supreme Court because we're the people, and that's the people's court. But what they've made them do, like the Brunson brothers, they made them go through the lower courts, then go through the state courts, then go through the federal courts, and then you got to be approved to do this, and then you can't get any appeals. Because those guys aren't going to let you take something like this to the Supreme Court. But they don't have a voice in it because we, the people, can do a redress of grievance by taking it to the Supreme Court. because that's our right. And so we take it to the Supreme Court like they did, and go ahead and look up Amendments 3 and 4. You'll love it. They're that old. And so when that happened, the president has to enforce it. How could you have a president enforcing it? And now we don't even have the 9 people. We only have 6. So we wouldn't be able to get the numbers we need to get it done. But you can't do it because there's no way Biden or Harris could have done anything, because they couldn't enforce it because they were also defendants.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So it was the timing of when it was taken. But here's the other thing. When I told you about what Todd Callender was doing, he's an international attorney. He's the one that handed me the 45 points, and so I'm telling him there has to be a way they're not taking an oath either. And what do they find? It's point 13 of the 45 points. Avoid all loyalty oaths. And that's what they're doing now. Don't take any oaths to their God. And that's why I told you about the FOIAs. So when he found out they didn't have their oaths, they didn't take their oaths, he's now filed it in the circuit, and I think it's 5th Circuit that Alito's over, because you can trust Alito, you can trust Thomas.
Yep.
And so Clarence Thomas, because it's the Supreme Court justices that are over the circuit courts. And so that's why there's only a certain number of them. Then there's a certain number, I think federal is 12 and circuit is 9, because there's 9 justices. But now there's 3 justices that have no voice about any of this because of what they've already said. And so they are now defendants on it, and they could end up being tried the same way as our entire Congress, House and Senate. So that's what's happened with the Brunson case. And then now the Judge case was filed on April 18 of 23. And before he did that, he gave me the 45 points that were read into our congressional record on January 10 of 1963. Interesting year for it to be in there, isn't it?
Yeah, no kidding.
63.
Wow. So there's a question about John Adams. Was he good or bad? Of course, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams died 50 years after the signing of the Declaration of Independence on July 4th. The same day? Come on. Sounds like another takeout by the deep state.
Well, I've mentioned this, and it is the same thing, because Monroe was taken out. He did Monroe Doctrine in 1820 when he made the presentation to Congress. Then he became the president, and then on our 55th anniversary, they took him out. Now, here's the difference of that time frame.
Oh, wow.
Guess what the major medicine was? Arsenic. So arsenic was giving him comfort and rest, but all it takes is a little too much or an extra dose, because it's a poison.
Wow.
So, and just think how many ways they can combine in the lab.
Arsenic, wow, that's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
We look back on that, it's like, what kind of voodoo doctors they had back then?
Well, it's because nobody knew. Nobody knew, but see, the believers never went to doctors. We're so sick now that we're hardly living the number of years we're supposed to be living.
Yeah.
But they want us dead. And it was funny, 6 months after I met our friend Juan, he went on an interview with Nino, and I just was cracking up, because guys, even in the churches, they want you dead. What is it you don't get about this? And when I met him, he said, well, at least the church is fine. And 6 months later, when I showed all the proof to him, he was like, whoa, wait a minute. But nobody realized, because it all seems wonderful, doesn't it? All these days of Christmas, and everybody celebrates, and nobody really accomplishes anything from Thanksgiving until February 15. Everything's just kind of lazy. We had no idea all the killings that happened between December 24 and January 6. The 4 Advent candles are on the venerable day of the sun, to hope that the sun god will reincarnate. How many centuries are they going to wait for the guy to reincarnate? You know what I mean? But that's what we're living in, and we don't even understand the truth of all these things.
Wow.
But you're not to buy a tree, or you're not to cut it down. You're not to, don't put wood under it. And this is on the scripture, and balance it so it can stand on its own. Guys, they're worshiping the tree. The song, "Oh Christmas Tree," they're worshiping the tree. No El means no Elohim. We're falling for it and singing it like it's a wonderful song. And so we're joining this craziness. And guys, when I got it, once you know this stuff, you're just done with this. You're just done with these people. You're done playing their game. It's just, you're done with it. And so there was a wonderful guy, pastor from Trinidad Tobago. He was a quote that LT put on, and I'm trying to go back and find that interview. It was from September 10 of 21. I was still in bed, so I saw it, and that's how I remember that date, and because of 9/11. And so it was on the 10th of September, I'm pretty sure, in 21, when I was in recovery in bed. And here's this guy from Trinidad Tobago saying, the crack in the system of the church has already happened, and people are waking up to it. The Pilgrims knew it. It's going to crash. Are we going to help people understand how to fellowship with each other and unite together? Because it was always about the people. It was never about a building. It was never about money. It was never about, the whole thing is wrong. And that's all other kingdom. Give us your money and then make God responsible to take care of your needs. There's no relationship. So the whole thing has been a debacle. And when I heard that, it confirmed everything I'd been saying. Because I've been on the platform for a few decades now, constantly saying, get tight with the Father, having no idea how important truth and life, breath of life, because that's why all the pandemics, that's why all the vaccines get them strangulated so they don't have the breath of life. So depart them from the relationship, and if you don't have truth, you can't discern evil. And so now that I've gotten it down to that basic fact, it's like I can't say it enough. I've put it out on X probably once a week from different perspectives, because the truth is the truth, and there are no versions of the truth. So people can say, and people have said, Sheila, well, that's probably your truth. I've got a different truth. Well, good luck with that. How's that working for you? Because he brought me out of the pit. I mean, there was no way for me to survive any of this. What the FBI agents did to me, I've had no income, and so I from the world, so I've had no Social Security, and so I only have what he has me do and what I receive. And people go, well, then why don't you ask people for money? Because I don't. If he doesn't prompt you to do something because you want to bless, because that's what we're supposed to be doing, that is a system, it's a blessing cycle that nothing can stop it once it starts. If you start blessing people and then they start blessing, and because it's of who we are, it's never about money. It was never about money. And if we do that, the whole world currency can collapse, and you and I will be fine. Because we all have enough, and enough information, and enough things, and enough excess to help each other. And that's what it was all about. They never made it about money. So all of that is other kingdom. But
so
I can't stand around. The what?
Once it's proved without a doubt that Biden was illegitimate, wouldn't all his executive orders, Supreme Court pick, pardons, etc., be null and void?
Oh, guys, it goes way, way back before that, because is TSA still at the airports? I'm going to finally fly. I haven't flown in a long time, but I can't do Vegas again because I haven't seen you since then. I had a heat stroke on the way back. No, I did see you on June 25. But so I just don't want to do that again because it's so hot here. Every day our heat index is over 107. It kept going 107, 107, 107. Now it's 10, 11. I just don't want to be out in that kind of heat and driving. So I'm actually going to fly. I'm actually going to fly into Vegas this time, just because.
Good.
So, and that thing that they were saying, I wanted to relate it to that, where it disappeared from the screen. Oh, about the Biden thing.
Yeah.
TSA. Okay, TSA. Did you guys know TSA doesn't have any authority anymore? Did you guys ever talk about this?
Mm.
Did you know that when Patriot Act, because Patriot Act that they did because of 9/11, and that's what I think is all going to get cleaned up when we do the summit this time, because he said it's going to be about arrests, it's going to be about currency, and it's going to be about the truth going all the way back to 9/11. 9/11 was done to us on purpose, and the insurance company that changed it to terrorist insurance coverage 90 days before, and then paid out, and then we found out who owned the building and how they leased it out, and so both of them got paid. The building owner was the Bush family that was only Bush in America, and then the guy that they leased it to got the terrorist coverage. How can you get coverage 90 days before, and then a terrorist act happens and they don't question you? How does that happen? So anyway, so TSA is under the Patriot Act, which was created due to 9/11. And so when the Patriot Act happened and TSA came into position, they've had all these rules to tell us, that you can't even take your own bottled water on the plane. And when I was in South Korea, I didn't even go out of the airport. I came in and went through their security again to board again, and I had to dump all my water. I mean, it just, what TSA did is just horrible. Now here's the fun part. Did you know they aren't legitimate anymore? Because Patriot Act wasn't renewed. And people go, oh yeah, it was renewed. No, it wasn't. And Trump's never done anything to renew it. And Obama was in France, so his team auto-penned it. You can't auto-pen that kind of a contract. That's against the rules. And so you can't auto-pen it. It never was officially signed even when he got back. It never was corrected, so guess what? TSA doesn't have any authority because the Patriot Act is no longer valid.
Incredible.
There's stuff, I mean, guys, and I'll tell you another one. Here's a funny one. There's a guy that's giving me all this information. Did you know that there was a Reconstruction Act to put us under that corporation in 1871 during Ulysses S. Grant? Did you know that the entire Confederacy states didn't vote for it? So they didn't have enough states, because you have to have the full majority, more than 2/3 of the states have to put it through, and there weren't enough states to put the Reconstruction Act through. So everything that the corporation did is null and void and invalid. Do you see? It's been a mess, but we've got a lot of people that still, and I've repeated this again and again, we were never free. We were never independent. We were under a corporation structure under England, and that's why King George, all the way up to King Charles, was His Excellency, the President of the United States. That's when we did the summons, remember, for Quantico back on September 30, and we were the only one talking about the summons 2 days before. And it actually had the date and everything in it, and it said His Excellency the President of the United States, and people were like, why did he do that? Who rode in the King's carriage when he was in England just 2 weeks before? And when he came home, he said, I'm meeting with Bibi Netanyahu on the state of Israel. Who ever heard it called by its corporate name? Because it's a corporation under England, filed in the City of London just like ours is, and or was. I think all that got straightened out while he was in England, because why would he be meeting with Bibi on the State of Israel Inc. if he didn't resolve that while he was in England? Because Charles wasn't in charge of anything in England, and Charles is never going to be in Buckingham Palace. I mean, because when they took Prince Philip and the Queen out, the day they took them out because they got COVID, both of them on the same day. Harvard president and wife, same day. Here's your 3 that we did. And Sweden, king and queen over Eric's son. One president keeps wanting to know, how's everything going for Eric's son, apostrophe S? Because Erickson has 2 S's. Remember, Loretta Lynch signed the contracts way out in the future for all of our communications and et cetera, That's all controlled under the King and Queen of Sweden. All those three couples were all removed on the same day. Now, when we got COVID, we had to lock down. They got up and left. And I'll never forget the Queen's face as she's coming out of Buckingham Palace and her face is toward the window of the car. She's like, "Can any of you help me?" I mean, it was devastating. But nobody's ever going to be back in Buckingham Palace. And so these things, they're all related. All of this is related, and he's been handling, because this is what you have to do with the corporation. Yet everything's been done to us in layers. So every layer has to be peeled back. And as President Jefferson said, once you have fraud and corruption, you can't just, this is an evil, guys, we're going to just remove this and replace it with this. You cannot do that. It has to come back to its original intent. So, and its original principles. So that's where we're headed. And until we have it ready for that, and all of these people are dealt with, you can't leave any of them out in the pasture to swing right back around and destroy the future generations. Because they've been trained up this way. That's all they know. So,
yep.
It's going to take time. I just want it done right. I don't care how long it takes. Because even when we get all of this done, it's going to be decades of cleanup. It's decades of removing all these organizations and people who think they have authority, and us getting the right people in the right positions, and us, we the people, forming this republic back to a government of, by, and for the people. That's why they were only supposed to go represent when something had to be taken care of. And they had to be business owners and homeowners. And they only did it for 2 years, because after they do theirs, and then the business owner somewhere else in the community, he's supposed to go do it. You know what I mean? So that's how it started. The intent was perfect. The principles were perfect. Everything was perfect. But we just found out when May 17 was the Second Continental Congress, and so everybody thought, and that was one of the reasons for the prayers on that day, when he called us to prayer on May 17 for 7 weeks. But the thing that people never knew about is back in 1774, when they had the First Continental Congress, they couldn't even come together united, because Georgia, nobody from Georgia's delegation even showed up. Because Georgia's been controlled by King George, who's His Excellency, the President of the United States. And he's been above, you talk about puppet masters, they've been above us, and everybody that's operating for us and with us, they've been above all of it the entire time. We have never been free. It's never been our land. That's what the 1812 war was about. We didn't win it.
That explains a lot about Georgia. It's the corruption there has just always been so incredible. So they've never really broke free. Wow.
Because it's all.
Help you guys.
Well, remember Oglethorpe?
A lot to clear all this up.
And Oglethorpe said he was going to bring the debtors' prison here and give all these people a wonderful second chance on this land. And then they found out how much money they could make by pushing all the original people who live on the land. They didn't just push the Native Americans over. They pushed everybody over who knew the truth, so that nobody on this side of the Mississippi, because then it could take all day to ride a horse to go 5 miles. You know what I mean? To take the buggy and the horse and go ride 5 miles and then pick up some groceries and then ride back. I mean, it was a whole different life then. And there were no regular roads. There was no pavement in places. I mean, it was wooden highway in 1912 in San Diego County along the ocean. Highway 1 or 101, or that highway that goes along the ocean. This is amazing. We don't have the perception of how all of this happened or where people were at. They didn't have a way to unite, and they didn't have a way to hear the truth. You can't get on the other side of the Mississippi to go have a meeting with somebody and find out, well, how did this happen, and how did the tribes get here, and because they didn't know any of these things. I'm still telling people, even within the tribes, because they didn't even have the Gospels. I just heard this when I was at the First Nations gathering this year, the annual gathering. They said, we have to credit the Pilgrims. We never even had the Gospels until then. So they had, I've shown you guys in my newsletter, and I think we showed it on the last interview, where they had a wampum belt that was the original Bible. And I'm going to clarify this because, yes, there are wampum belts for the Satan side too. There are wampum belts. But the wampum belts have meanings. And here's the gift that people aren't understanding when they're going, Sheila, there are bad wampum belts too. There's bad of everything, guys. But the wampum belts, the way they could do it, they were communicating with each other because Hebrew is fifth dimension communication. But if you weren't hearing from the Father about it, they would have a wampum belt saying everybody has come into this meeting to deceive us. So do not respond. I mean, they had things that would just tell them, this is what's happening today, so this is what you need to know when you walk into this meeting. They had the ones where people had double-mindedness, and there's a wampum belt that these people are double-minded, don't take anything they say for truth. But so they were saying all these things, even though a lot of them didn't speak English, they were saying the same things. These are not trustworthy people. So they were warning each other with these wampum belts, but the original Bible is so profound, and that's the picture we shared last time. So they just, because they didn't have scriptures, they didn't have anything in print. They've been here since 600 BC, 612 BC. So.
So this will be the last one. This will be a good one. So do you think sleeper cells will be activated soon? So I think that they've already started taking them down. That's what ICE has been doing, special groups within ICE, tier 1 type guys that are in the ICE. That's why I think they're Democrats are pushing so hard to get ICE out of their cities and so forth, because in those cities, and especially in mosques, and I knew this, like, I left the SEAL teams in 2003 or 2002, I think it was, and we knew back then that the cartels were having Hamas and Hezbollah come over and started integrating with the cartels in Mexico and Central America. And we've heard, a lot of us, that they have been transporting weapons into America and they've been staging them in mosques. So we saw the same thing in Fallujah, where they basically took over that city, and we had to go in and just basically almost level that city. But a lot of the fighters would run into the mosques, and they were safe there because we still didn't have the option of hitting them if they went into the mosque. But eventually, they gave that authority. So if they were shooting, killing, and they ran into the mosque got blown up. So that's my thoughts. We're gonna have problems with the mosque and the Muslim terrorists that have come across the border. We already know that. That's been revealed quite a bit. What are your thoughts?
I think that our guys are on top of that. Fort Hood situations brought a lot of this to the attention of them, because the Fort Hood guys were causing all the problems were guys from those cells. Yeah. So they've been on top of this. There's two other things happening with this. One is, are you noticing how many times every day, every other day, every day of the week, Kash Patel is announcing guys that committed all of this, because the fraud dollars they were gathering was to pay for all of this stuff. And that's why cut off the head of the snake has been Doge, has been cut off USAID, cut off, USAID wasn't just funding all of this, all of the elections around the world. It was funding a lot of this. But so Kash Patel has been saying, we just went to this country and then resecured 258 million from what this man stole from us. Do you see what I mean? So when they realized that they weren't going to be able to keep the money and they were going to be arrested, then they tried to escape, and that's why he keeps updating the fraudsters. He keeps having the top 10, and then he goes, now guys, we already got 3 out of here, so here's the 3 new fraudsters that they're adding. So the money thing is going to help resolve a lot of that. There's another thing that has gone on, that did you know that illegals that are in our country who were told they had to leave our country, and they were told by the court they had to leave the country, there is, and I think it's our Meet Dylan that found this from California. She's powerful. And now, did you know they're getting letters in the mail and they can go up to like 1.3 or 1.5 million. And so what they're doing is they're sending letters out, and people are shocked, and they're trying to say that this can't be happening to me. American can't charge me. America is sending out fine letters of 579,000, 983,000, because it's so much a day. Once you're told you have to leave America, we have the right to charge you that amount every day until you leave, and they still haven't left. And so they're sending these fining letters, and they said this is the last chance. You are going to be allowed to get $2,600. I think it's by the end of this month. You have these few days to get the $2,600 and a flight home. And if you choose not to do that, then we're going to pursue on the fines that you owe America. And then it's not, because we're not going to put them in prison here. We're going to send them to prison where they come from. But that's what it is.
Beautiful.
But these letters, I've never heard of these letters. Have you ever heard of this? But these are the leaders of these groups who never leave because they've been told they got away with it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's the same with these fraudsters. They were all helped to get this, and I don't know if they have the 258 million, but they owe restitution to America for all of the fraud that they did. And now they're escaping to other countries, and Cash Patel's people are going in and getting them. And every day it's been a different country. They're over here getting this guy. And then as they remove him from the top 10 fraudsters, they add the next level. I have never seen this level of transparency, and I've been around for a few decades, more than 4, no more than 5. So I'll just leave it there.
Very good.
Sherry Tenpenny didn't. She said, when you get in your 50s, Sheila, this was right during all the targeting, and she looked at me, and as a doctor, they're supposed to be able to tell how old you are. And she goes, when you get in your 50s decade, Sheila, you're gonna deal with a lot more things like I'm dealing with. And I went, oh wow, well, I'll be in touch. I'll find out what it is that I'm dealing with. I'd already been through that one, but anyway, it's okay.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Sheila. And hisbest.org, and of course you got all these books. It looks like it's better if they do. Is it better if they order them from your website?
If you order from the website, there's no shipping and handling, no taxes. It's up to you. You can order them through Amazon, Barnes and Noble. If you have a membership, you get a discount there. Then you can order them through Barnes and Noble, and then they'll ship them to you. So, but yeah, we don't charge shipping and handling or taxes on any of the books. It's just the price of the book.
Very good.
So, and you can get the autographed copy there. And guys, please, if you can do something for House of Hope, which is for the rehab girls that need this education, and Village of Hope, the young mothers who are pregnant and then have the baby, and etc. They're trying to help all of them. Please just write in, and we'll get you in touch with them so you can help them, because they're going to have